As I write this, I am wearing panties, pantyhose, and a bra. All the other items that I currently wear are of men's styling. That is not by choice. I have known since I was very young that I had an unusual interest in women's clothing. I tried for the better part of my life to tell myself that something was wrong with me. I tried hiding from it, I tried succumbing to it. I tried lying about it. Nothing helped. At first, it was harmless. I would sneak something out of my mother's drawer and hide somewhere to try it on. My hiding place of choice was behind the sofa. It was the 1970s. At the time, thigh highs with garters were still very popular. Also, multicolored knee highs were being worn by all the college-aged girls. I had some of them. None of them fit me, but I liked the feel of them on my legs, my arms, well, you get the idea. Soon I moved on to other items in my mother's forbidden drawer: bras, panties, pantyhose, skirts, and the more I saw, the more I liked it. I loved the feel of the materials, and I began to feel cheated that I was born a boy and couldn't fully enjoy wearing these items. Before I knew it, I was a teenager. I had long since stopped rummaging through my mother's stash. But still I felt the need to do it. It had been almost 10 years since I had worn any women's clothing. I had tried to get by on watching the Home Shopping Network since they regularly featured beautiful women's clothes. But now I had to feel it again. Something in me triggered the thought, and I had to get some women's clothes, and soon. I was somewhat fortunate in the fact that my parents both worked during the day. My brother and I both had school, but I was the good one. I never missed school unless I was genuinely ill. So I faked it a few times. I would call my mother at work and tell her that I didn't feel well. She would buy it, and I would have all day alone with her clothes. The thing about borrowing your mother's clothes is that you have to make sure you return them in exactly the same state as you found them. My mother in particular is very observant when it comes to her things. And mostly never get anything on her things. I didn't want her to find out, so I did the best I could to arrange everything that I took in exactly the same position as it was when I found it. Sometimes I would even draw out exactly where everything was so I wouldn't forget. During my teenage years, I was always very close to my mother's since in everything but shoes, and, of course, bra size. So fitting into everything wasn't a problem. The problems began to arise when I would try on her pantyhose. There were a few incidents where I accidentally tore or put a run in her hose and she would notice. She would never outright ask me if I was wearing them, but I suspect she knew. Then I made a big mistake. I wore a pair of her panties all day long. They were white silk. I may have gotten a little too excited at the idea of wearing them all day, and I left a stain on the front of them. I tried to wash it out before they got home, but it only hardened. So I was left with a choice. I could put them back and feign ignorance. I could just destroy them and, again, feign ignorance. Or I could keep them. And feign ignorance. So I kept them. Mom looked for those panties for weeks. I wore them every day. The feeling was indescribable. I was wearing panties. After a week or so, the feeling wore off. I realized a couple of things. First, I was wearing the same panties every day. That's kinda gross. Secondly, I was wearing my mother's panties every day. That's really gross. So if I was to continue with this, I would need to gulp by my own panties. So I made a trip into town. I was determined to buy 1, panties, and several of them so as not to have to wear the same pair consecutively, 2, pantyhose, and 3, a bra or 2, or 3 or 4. I stopped at a drugstore and bought the pantyhose without much fuss. They were nude legs everyday pantyhose. Then I moved on to the department store. I looked around the store for a while, making sure that it didn't look like I was there just for women's underwear. Then I found a package of Love Pat panties in my size that were on sale. I had the first part, now I needed bras. I cased the women's section, trying to make it look like I was there shopping for someone else. I even talked to myself a bit. No, these would never fit her, and no, she'd never like this pattern. At the time, I thought the people around me bought it. So I found a 2-pack of training bras in my size. After getting them off the shelf, I made a beeline for the register. I thought about stealing them. But then the image of me trying to explain to both the cops and my parents that I was trying to steal women's underwear made me change my mind. At the register, I said nothing. I didn't even make eye contact with the lady behind the counter. She cheerily asked if there was anything else. I shook my head, paid in cash, and hurriedly left the store. Now I had everything I needed. I got home, locked the door, and chained it too, just in case, and made my way to Mom's bedroom. I found a jumper that she had worn a long time ago that fit me perfectly. The best part about it was the fact that, once I got it on, I couldn't take off any of the underclothes without taking it off first. And it looked like a dress. I quickly threw off my clothes, tore open the packages that I had just bought, and got dressed. The panties were the first part. I slid them up my legs and over my butt. It felt wonderful. I had to calm down. Still a few more steps left. I put the bra around me. I know it's a cliché, but I did have some trouble with the clasp. The feeling of the bra encompassing my chest was indescribable. My nipples hardened instantly. Gotta stay calm, more steps to complete. I had seen women put on pantyhose all my life. So I did what I was taught to do. I rolled up each leg and slowly slid the garment up until it was around my waist. I wanted to be careful with these. These were my only pair and I didn't want to have to replace them. Almost complete. I grabbed the dress, stepped into it, and pulled the zipper up halfway. I couldn't reach it. So, I kept switching positions until finally I got the zipper all the way up. Then I closed the clasp just above the zipper to finish the job. All right. I was dressed. Now what do I do? Mom and Dad wouldn't be home for a few more hours and I was in heaven. But how do I spend this eternity? I couldn't think of anything, so I went into the living room to watch HSN. Just then, as I settled in on the couch, there was a sound outside. It was a door slamming shut. I peeked out the window to check. Oh shit! It was my parents. I tore through the house all the while trying to reach the zipper to get out of the dress. No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't get the zipper to go down. I reached my bedroom and continued to work on the zipper. Then I heard a distinctive sound. Rip. With that, the back of the jumper dress was ruined. And the zipper was still caught at the top. So I pulled on it as hard as I could and broke the zipper. Finally! I was free. I didn't have time to remove the bra, the pantyhose, or the panties, since my parents were at that moment trying to get it, only to meet with the chain lock on the front door. My father was yelling into the house for me to unlock the door. I was holding a garment of my mother's that I had just ruined. I felt faint. So I grabbed my jeans, my socks, and 2 shirts. I quickly threw them on and tossed the jumper dress under the blankets on my bed. I ran into the hallway to unlock the door only to meet with my father asking me what took so long. I gave him some lame excuse about really deep sleep. I asked them what they were doing home so early. Mom was sick and had to come home to go to bed. With that, Dad left and Mom retired to the bathroom. I didn't have much time. I had to dispose of the evidence. I hung the jumper dress back on the hanger and placed it back in Mom's closet. I removed the bra through my armholes and didn't bother with the pantyhose or the panties. Mom came out of the bathroom and I told her, "Mom, I have to tell you something." With that, I took her into the bedroom and showed her the jumper dress. She was appalled, to say the least. I was met with a barrage of questions. Everything from why I was doing this to my sexuality was questioned. I told her that I wasn't gay. I didn't want to become a woman, and I don't know why I'm so interested in women's clothing. She sat me down and we talked about it for a while. I cried. When it was all said and done, she promised not to tell anyone as long as I promised never to do it again. I gladly said yes, and I said goodbye to dressing like a woman forever, or so I thought. Years later, I went away to college. I was introduced to new world. A new chance. People who didn't know me. Places I'd never been. Another chance to dress up. I wasted no time, as there was a Rocky Horror showing a week after I started school. I gathered a costume in no time. Of course, I was going as Frankenfurter. It was so much fun. I didn't want it to end. But it did. And my roommate thought it was really odd that I kept the costume. But he never said anything. Then there was Halloween. I had by that time developed friendships with several of the girls from school. I asked one of them that was about my size if I could borrow a dress. She loved the idea and wanted to help. She got a friend to help her, and before I knew it, we were out shopping for hose, shoes, wigs, and makeup. Shoes were something that I'd never encountered before. I was never given the opportunity to get women's shoes in my size. But now I had a pair of 2-inch heeled sandals that showed off my toes. That being the case, she said, I should probably paint my toenails. So I did. She offered me a bright red bottle of nail polish and showed me the basic method of how to do it. I went to my dorm room and painted my toenails for the first time. When I was finished, I had nail polish all over my feet, but my feet looked incredibly feminine. I returned to her room the day before Halloween, and she and her friend helped me to finish off my costume. She had me go to the bathroom and change. I came back out dressed as a French maid. I still looked like a guy in a dress, though. She studied me for a moment and opened a drawer in her vanity. She removed a black bra and handed it to me. She told me to take down the top of my dress, and I complied. With that, she told me to put my arms out one at a time, and she hooked the bra around my chest. She told me that she never wears that one anyway, so I could do with it whatever I wanted when the night was over. I pulled the dress back over my shoulders, and she told me that I needed to shave. Now, I should tell you that my goatee is something of my defining trait. I had been wearing it since high school, and, by this point, I had honestly forgotten what my chin looked like. I told her this, and she asked me if I wanted to be convincing or not. I told her that I did, and she clarified that she meant my face and my body. She told me that she and her friend would both be there on Halloween, and I should come over no later than 2 p.m. so they could get started. With that, she opened the door and forced me out. She threw my male clothes to me and locked the door behind her. It took a minute, but I realized that I was in the hallway of a girls' dorm hall dressed as a French maid. I quickly darted to the men's bathroom to change clothes, but not before being noticed by several inhabitants, all of whom snickered. I returned home and shaved. It was very difficult to do and took quite a few razors. And I think I permanently stopped up the shower. But it was done, so I went back the next day. I was met at the door by her roommate, who was dressed as a vampiress. Angie, my friend, was dressed as a nurse. Her roommate led me into the room by my hand and told me to go ahead and get dressed. Angie was working on finishing her costume in the bathroom, so I started to duck into the closet to get dressed. Her roommate insisted that I stay in the main room and change. After all, it was nothing she hadn't seen before except of course that I was guy who was about to put on women's clothing. So I changed in the main room. Angie's roommate said nothing while I took off my jeans and my shirt. I began to grab for the French-maid dress when she stopped me. She told me that if I was going to be wearing pantyhose, I don't want to be wearing boxer shorts. So she handed me a brand new pair of panties that had ruffles on the back of them. She told me that Angie had bought these for me as a gift to go with the costume. I thanked her and told her that I couldn't change underwear in front of her. She told me that I could use the closet for that. So I took the dress in my hand and began to pull it up my body. Angie was finished getting dressed and she once again helped me with my bra. I finished pulling up the dress and Angie handed me the pantyhose. I did what I had always done. I rolled up each leg and slowly slid them over my legs. Angie asked me if I had done this before. I responded with a shocked of course not, and that was the end of that. After I had put on my shoes, Angie had me sit in a chair. She and her friend then took turns doing my makeup. One of them would start with eyeshadow and eyeliner, while the other would do blush and lipstick. Satisfied with their results, they then asked if I had brought back the bottle of nail polish. I had, and they proceeded to paint my fingernails to match my toenails. They then placed the wig on my head, clipped it into place, and stood back to admire their handiwork. I saw the mirror across the room from me as Angie stared at me. I was suddenly unaware that anyone else was in the room. I was fixated on the beautiful woman sitting in the chair in the French-maid costume. At first, I thought it was a door into the next room where someone else was getting ready for Halloween. Then I realized it was me. They had done an amazing job turning me into a woman. I didn't even recognize myself.